How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. Today on the pod, we're going to be talking with Stefano Barberi. He is a professional cyclist who has spanned careers on the mountain as well as the road. He used to race in Europe on a world tour team back in the early 2000s, and to this modern day, he has been soloing it out as a privateer in the mountain biking space. Super awesome guy, very experienced, and he's also friends with Phil Guyman, if you remember me recording with him not just that long ago. And pretty cool story that comes up a little bit later is actually that Phil helped him to stay in cycling when Stefano was really ready to call it quits and be done totally. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this episode with Stefano. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's
Just
fine.
makes it supernatural.
Yeah, I mean, I can rewind.
No, you're fine. So you're getting carpet done in the house.
But the thing is, we have a 3 bedroom and the 3 bedrooms have carpet, and then we have the stairs. So he did two of the rooms. No, he did one of the rooms and the stairs yesterday,
Okay.
and he's doing the other 2 rooms. Sorry, cat.
I love it.
And then so he's doing the other 2 rooms, but the problem is that we're still living here, right? It's not like we move and whatever. So like we had to move everything from the bedrooms from one bedroom to the other so that he can swap the carpet.
Yeah.
So then we had to yesterday we had to take everything out from my bedroom, put it in the upstairs bedroom.
Yeah.
And then today we had to do the opposite. So we had to
Bring
take
it all
everything
down.
from there to the other room. And then downstairs we had to take everything from the other bedroom into the living room. So it was just like shuffling,
Yeah.
3 bedrooms worth of stuff around, which sucks.
Yeah, for sure. And you
And
have just one kid?
I have two.
Two kids. Okay.
So I have my oldest is going to turn 8 March 10, so
Okay.
next week. And then my youngest is 4.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. It's a busy life, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say 4 years apart. It's a good gap. That's the same with me and my middle sister. But yeah, that's
Okay.
4 and 8. Those are some crazy ages, huh?
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I like the gap. So me and my brother we're just under 2 years apart,
Mm-hmm.
which knowing what I know now about having kids, I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Like it's insane to the thought of having to manage the oldest, and then he's having his thing, and then the youngest start having his thing, and just try to do both at the same time would be insane.
Yeah.
But they're far apart enough that the oldest, is able to help most times,
Mm-hmm.
so it helps quite a bit. It's a little bit easier, but to me going from one kid to 2 kids is like, it's
A battle
it's
to a war.
definitely, like there's one kid and you think that it's going to be like twice as hard, but it's really like, it's like having 3,
Mm.
so it's like exponentially, it's not a linear curve,
Yeah.
but there's nothing hard about having kids, you just got to kind of plan your schedule and things like that.
Yeah.
Be a little bit more aware of life, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So like you're a professional cyclist,
Yep.
and that takes a lot of time obviously for training and then the sponsorship stuff, and I'd love to get into that, but what does your wife do? Does she help take care of kids full time?
No, so my wife is a nutritionist and also owns a gym, a local gym called Daily 30 here in Reno.
Okay, cool.
So they do like 30-minute hit classes,
Okay.
sort of thing. But yeah, we both have sort of like non-traditional, work. I've never had a regular job outside of, that didn't involve racing bikes. So this year is going to be my 22nd season as a professional. I've been racing for 30 something years. First time I went to a bike race was 1992, 93, I think.
Nice. That's when I was born.
Yeah, so a long time, man.
Yeah. That's epic.
And I mean, I've been racing pros since before a lot of the dudes that I'm racing against, were even born. So,
Yeah.
but Yeah, so she's a nutritionist. She owns the gym. So the cool thing is that it allows us to kind of set up our schedule in a way that, fits for both, So
Mm-hmm.
I do travel quite a bit for bike racing and events and whatever else and sponsorships, but so I might be gone 3, 4, 5 days at a time.
Mm.
But at the same time, when I'm not traveling, I'm usually at home a little bit more than the typical 9 to 5 would.
Yeah.
Because, even a massive day on a bike, talking 7 hours is still shorter than,
Yeah, like an 8 hour workday and
yeah,
commuting and everything else.
and commuting. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so we make it work. I mean, there's days where I have to help take the kids to school. Some days, I don't need to do that, so I can get out earlier, but I might have to go pick them up. So, like I said, you just have to be kind of organized and figure that out. And we usually, every weekend, whatever, all right, this is what I got going on this week. This is what I need to do. Can you help me with this? Can you help with that? And, we'll kind of figure out how to make the work schedule work together for the both of us. But we do a pretty good job at that together.
Yeah.
So it works out well.
Right on, man. Well, first things first, I should just say thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really, it was really kind of cool to get to know you a little bit just through obviously the Instagram world, but then getting to know Dave, who lives here in Reading. He talked about you quite a bit on our first couple of rides together, and then going to visit Arizona and getting to meet Lisa. And then she mentioned that she knew you guys and you commented. So I was like, oh, such a small world, the endurance world.
Man.
So yeah, it's really, really cool to have you on. So thank you for making the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. So
yeah. So the first question I'd love to dive into before we just start going through your life in somewhat of a chronological order is, from your perspective, who is Stefano?
I am a bike racer, a dad, a husband, somebody that just, kind of lives life sort of their own way, and yeah, kind of go from there, I guess.
Yeah.
Born in Brazil.
Okay.
I've been a U.S. citizen as of last week, I guess, 15 years since I became a U.S. citizen. So I have a dual citizenship. I live here full time. I've been here since 1996. So, yeah.
So grew up in Brazil until you ended up moving here for school, or I guess for racing, or why did you come to the U.S.?
No, so I'm gonna be 41 this month, right? So I'm kind of older now. But
yeah. Happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks, man. So I was born in Brazil. My whole family's from Brazil. And then when I was 12, my mom, dad, and younger brother, we moved to Florida, South Florida. And that was 1996. So I've been here almost 30 years now, and U.S. citizens for 15.
Yeah.
But yeah, we moved to Florida. Like, Brazil is an interesting place. It's kind of a place where you either have money or you don't have money. There's just not a whole lot in between. And there's a lot of stuff that was happening in the 90s there, with some dictatorship and like government type stuff. Without getting too into it and comparing to things now, because I try to
feel
avoid.
Feel free.
No. I try and avoid religion and government. Can't win and going too deep into those. But so yeah, things got a little weird down there. And then there's a couple other things that happened, like my grandma died and some other stuff. And then it got to the point where my parents were like, they thought that they could give us a better life by moving to U.S. So we ended up moving. And I've been here since. My brother is here as well. He's in Seattle now. So he lived in Florida for most of the time, and then a few years back he moved to Seattle.
Okay.
He works for Microsoft.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're very different. So I ride bikes. I've never seen him on a bike. I struggle to do anything too deep with computers. So we're very opposite. But So yeah, so I grew up in Florida. I lived there from I guess sixth grade up until I was 19. Because at around my senior year in high school, a little before I graduated high school, I turned pro at mountain bikes. Um, and then I started doing some road racing just for training, thinking, I'm gonna race mountain bikes forever for a living and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just so happens that I was a little bit early, and the money that was on mountain bikes at the time in the 90s started shifting over to road racing because of, the lens effect. Um, and yeah, I figured out pretty quickly that I could make a living racing road bikes where I was spending money to go do, the mountain bike Norba. The Norba series was basically what Lifetime is now,
Okay.
the Lifetime Grand Prix. Minus whatever, making it so only a couple dozen athletes, minus that portion, which I'm not a huge fan of,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, the Norba series was the biggest thing at the time. But the Lance effect came in, Lance started winning and the money started shifting over to road racing. I was like, oh, I can make a living road racing and spending money going to mountain bikes. And, I got pretty good at road racing pretty quickly. So all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm winning and making money versus going there racing, World Cups and Norbas and getting my head kicked in and spending my own money with no sponsorships. So that happened pretty quickly. So then I turned pro on the road in 2004, and just kind of went from there.
Yeah. Wow. So for you and your brother that you were talking about is your brother, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, he works in Seattle. So for you and your brother, like you said, you guys are pretty much polar opposites. Was that always the case even when you were very young? Like when did you first start to notice that?
pretty much.
Yeah.
It's like I got into cycling at 7 or 8, and
Okay.
he's almost 2 years younger than me. So around the same time, I don't know how it happened or what, but he went out and got one of those like coding books. What is it?
Yeah.
A++, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
C plus, C sharp, something like that. C plus
Yeah,
plus.
those books, I don't even know what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
yeah, he got one of those books and just like self-learned,
Wow.
and
Good for him.
yeah, so like we both ended up uh, going really deep into our fields, and we both ended up the one thing we have in common is that the thing that we were doing at 8, 9 years old that we're like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Like we turned it into that. It just so happens that it's like a two very
Very polar
different,
opposite lives.
polar opposite lives. Exactly.
So for your parents, like they obviously wanted to move away for political reasons and just, I think probably mostly circling around wanting to give you guys a better future.
Right.
How much do you think it means to them now that you and your brother and them, like they're here settled in the U.S. and you guys are happy, successful, and you have like had a future and an opportunity based on them making that decision to move?
Um, I mean, my mom is super proud. My dad died in 2005.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Uh, yeah, yeah, it's not your fault, man. No need to apologize. But
Yeah,
so,
that's
yeah,
still hard.
yeah, of course. Um, so, yeah, I mean, my mom is super proud. She does live back in Brazil now, which I know she has her. For her, it's great because, it's better for her to make a living down there and work. And then she's got her brothers, and I have 20 something, almost 30 cousins or something like that.
Holy cow.
So we have
Yeah,
a huge family. She has
yeah,
5 brothers, and they're all super close. But at the same time, the thing that sucks is that I live here, and my brother lives here, and then her grandkids live here. So we have two. My brother doesn't have any kids, but still. So that part of it is difficult. So I don't get to see my mom as often as we would like. I see my mom like about once a year.
mm,
The She moved back. She was in Florida for a couple years there, I think from like 2015 to 2018. And then she went back to Brazil. So she went to Brazil. so we moved here in 96.
Mm-hmm.
When my dad got sick in 2004, they moved back to Brazil. And then I think in 2014, 2015, sometime around there, she moved back to the US. And then in 18, she went back to Brazil. So she's been kind of back and forth a little bit. So, it's hard for her because she doesn't get a chance to come out as often because it is super far.
Mm-hmm.
But then, she moved back at the end of 2018 and then COVID came a year later. So we ended up going like 4 years or something like that without being able to see each other.
Yeah, wow.
Luckily we have technology now. So like we
Sure.
can, my WhatsApp every day and she can talk to the kids and all that. But, it's difficult. But overall, I think she's super proud. I think there's moments where she has some doubts where it's sort of like, because her family is there and everything else, she might sometimes consider like, what if they had stayed here and not gone there? But like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it that way at all. But I
Okay.
don't see, I can't even imagine a life, if we had stayed down there. It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Well, first of all, I guess so. The reason I was giving condolences a little bit, like I lost my dad when I was 16, so I know that like that in itself, like losing a parent, is obviously a terrible thing. And I don't have kids yet, but I do want to have kids. And
Okay.
one thing that I'm like, I think I would say most bummed about is like when I finally have kids, like getting to have that, grandparent
Right.
relationship and seeing my dad interact with my kids. Like that's one thing that's like, oh, that really sucks. But with your mom, like, yeah, that is tough. Like technology is great, and I love being able to
Right.
FaceTime. So I live here in California, and my sister and mom and everyone live like from Oklahoma onward, eastward, and I get to talk to my sister and my little nephew and whatnot on FaceTime. But it's just not the same. It's really hard to like get that same
Right.
depth of connection. Um, yeah, so hopefully you guys will be able to connect a little bit further down the road. You think that you would ever convince your mom to come move close to you or your brother?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I think in some ways she wants to, and then at the same time, like, I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't have any say, but
yeah.
I think in some ways she would like to, and then but for work and making a living and things like that, it's
It
just
makes it hard.
much makes much more sense for her to be down there.
Yeah. What does she do?
She's an interior designer.
Okay, nice.
So my family comes from like boats. So so my uncles have owned some factories that manufacture boats and things
Oh,
like
that's
that
awesome.
down in Brazil. And for most of my life, she was an interior decorator for yachts, which
That's
is
sick.
another really weird, So
That's awesome. I want to be like, hey, let's go get your mom and start a
yeah,
yacht company.
yeah. So but yeah. So she does. Yeah, she does a bunch of different things like that, and so it makes a lot more sense for her to be down there than here.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for letting me pry a little bit. I always love
Yeah.
getting to know the family history a little bit. So, with your family and like what you're doing now, obviously with endurance sports and just the thing that you do day in and day out takes a lot of grit and resilience and showing up each day, having the discipline to do that. How much of that discipline do you attribute to nature or nurture, like and how you were brought up and the mindsets that were adopted and the values?
Um. I guess. I mean, I think a lot of it. One thing that I've learned about having kids, man, is like there's some stuff that you're just born with.
Mm.
It is really strange sometimes watching the kids,
Yeah.
and there's so much of their behavior, and that you're just like, I never pushed this on him, or never said this. I never tried to teach him a certain way to do things. But like I watch it and I'm like, that's me when I was that age, like
Mm-hmm.
you're just kind of watching yourself, like, so like there's a lot. It's amazing how much gets passed down without you really even being aware. Um, just things from behavior and, um, yeah, it's shocking how much of that is passed down without you really trying. Um, but I think my parents were also my family in general. Everybody was kind of self-driven. Uh, I would say my uncles are all pretty successful people. My mom as well. My dad was too. Our family has done well for themselves without you know um getting too deep into anything else. But my brother, same thing. Like I said, he's that
Self-taught engineer.
yeah, so, and I was kind of the same way with bikes and whatever. But I think a lot of my own thing is like the goals that I go for, or what I want to do, has always been from inside. If you tell me, oh, this is the cool thing to do, eh, it doesn't
Yeah,
really
it has
move
to
me.
pique your interest on your own
Yeah,
first.
I can't make myself go do anything. Like I enjoy going out and training and pushing myself because I want to be the best me. I don't care what my peers are doing or whatever is going on social media and whatever else. Sometimes maybe even to my detriment, because I was just kind of like, whatever, have fun. Yeah, like,
Mm-hmm.
let the cool kids do their thing. Like, leave me alone, like,
Mm-hmm.
um, so I think a lot of that, my own personal drive, I think comes from within. I don't care about what's popular or what's going on out there and how people are doing things. Even how I got back. Like the story I just told about how I got into road cycling was pure coincidence that at the time I started doing it, I was like, I'm having fun, and then the money all of a sudden shifted over that direction.
Mm.
And that happened again back the other way. So like, I did road racing full time for 15 years and I was enjoying it and it was fine. But I got to the point where, I kind of had done everything that I was going to do. One out of the races was probably going to win, one UCI races, NRC, uh, state championships and all of that, podium and nationals, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And But it's like, all right, I've done Trujillo 13 times. I've done Cascade 13 times. I've done Redlands probably somewhere near that many. All of these races, I have a pretty good idea how the races play out. A lot of those races don't really change year from year, and it's like I can tell you the mile marker on the road on the bachelor stage for Cascade where the break goes every year. It's just like, so got a little bit boring, and then it just happens that there was a mountain bike race, the High Cascades 100 mountain bike race in Bend, Oregon, that was 3 days before Cascade stage race. So I asked a friend of mine to take one of my bikes, and it's like, I'm gonna try and do this mountain bike thing. It's pretty cool. I've never raced 100 miles on a mountain bike. At the time I had never ridden 100 bike miles on a mountain bike.
It's a long way.
And so I went. I had an amazing time there, and it was really fun because I didn't know how the race was going to play out. I didn't know tactics. I didn't know how aid stations work, drop bottles, like all those things were all of a sudden were new to me. And I had an amazing time doing that and learning again. And at the end of that year, I was telling a few of my friends, one of them that you actually had on the podcast before. I was like, hey man, so like I think I'm gonna try to do this endurance mountain bike thing for a living. It's like I'm not getting anything out from doing all these road races for a 14th time that I'm not gonna learn anything new, doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
Where like this other stuff is pretty cool, and it's like, well, but like, what is it? Is there even like a way to make a living? I was like, I don't know. I'm just gonna call some companies that I have prior
Connections with.
relationship with and have a conversation and see if there's anything that I can do. I don't need to have a team. Just piece together my own sponsorships and give it a try. And like, fast forward, this is 2017 when I was having those conversations, now it's 2025, 8 years later.
You're
That's
still
all
doing it.
it is, so like it's kind of cool because I was a little bit ahead of the curve again, but it allows me to start to try to kind of figure out this whole thing before privateer the word privateer was being thrown around.
Mm-hmm.
you know
The rise of the
uh
influencer type of thing.
yeah, the influencer side of it, as far as like social media thing, I was a little bit behind. I kind of It's a conversation that I've had quite a few times, even to this day, with other athletes that are at a high level, where athletes are like, I just want to race my bike. And at the time, I was like that too. I was like, I just want to go race my bike, And the person I was talking about is Phil Guyman, who you had
Mm-hmm.
on, and he's like, dude, you got to get on. You got to do this. You got to, use social media. I was like, I just want to ride my bike. I don't care if anybody likes a thing or follows me. I don't want to be famous. I just want to ride my bike for a living. He's like, you got to do this thing. And I was like,
It's the way of
but I want to
privateering
go
now.
race bikes and win bike races. But it took me becoming a privateer and starting to form these individual relationships with my own private sponsors for me to kind of figure this side of the business out. Because back then, you're on the road team, you don't really care whose logo is on your jersey.
Yeah,
Like
you
all
just
you're
want to
thinking about
race.
is going to the bike race and winning a bike race, getting on the podium, and job done. And which is why road cycling is at such a low right now, is because the return of investment is so low.
Mm-hmm.
To form a small domestic team, you got to have 12 riders. So, you know, bikes alone, for example, you need road bikes and you need time trial bikes. If you done
Yeah.
right, then you have a home bike and a race bike.
Yeah.
So, like,
It's easy to get to
eh,
$1 million pretty quick of what's
yeah,
needed.
yeah, clothing for 12, travel for 12, tires, you name it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a pretty large investment. And the thing is, like, most of those guys are only thinking about like training and going to bike racing and trying to win a bike race. So then you ask a road cyclist, hey man, like, what's the logo on like the corner of your jersey right there? And you're like, oh, I don't know. It's like, dude, like, that logo is why you're here, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're an investment for this company. There's business. And unfortunately, even a lot of the current, most of my peers haven't quite figured that out yet. Um, but I had a pretty, I kind of figured that out pretty early, and which has been super beneficial to me. But unfortunately, the social media part, took a little bit longer, and right now it's a little bit weird because it's hard to grow social media doing the right things. Like I could start a fight with Phil, for example, and get a ton of followers, but like, you know, that's not that's not what I'm selling. I'm not selling,
Yeah.
you know, clown show tickets.
Mm-hmm.
But but yeah, I mean that's the business, man. Like bike racing is as much of the promoting sponsors and doing all these other things as it is actual bike racing. So the way I try to explain to people is like my job is promoting my sponsors, showcasing the products and my partners, making people aware of what I'm using, why they should be using those products, selling those things. Being a good ambassador for these brands, for the sport, for the bike races, dealing, working with promoters, working with my sponsors for their own marketing stuff, the content, all of that. That is a job. The bike
Sure.
racing part is for me.
Hmm.
Like if tomorrow I go and I'm fourth place at inbound, or if I'm 40th place at inbound or 400th, my sponsors are gonna be like, dude, thanks for coming out. We had a great time. Thanks for being out here. Thanks for spending time with us at the expo and partnering with us and helping us push all these like promotions and whatever else. But like they don't really care if I'm fourth or 40th or 400th. Like it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Uh, being third at inbound isn't going to really sell any extra product. It's not like when was the last time you saw a podium picture and you like zoomed in to see the bike that was in the back, what tires they were using, and then tried to figure out what model that was and
Mm-hmm.
where to find it. Like that doesn't happen anymore. So like, it's not that. But being a cool person, being out there, answering questions, talking to people, promoting the products, letting people know this is the tire that I'm using and why. Like that's what actually moves,
The sales.
things forward.
Yeah.
And that is why these companies pay me to go to these events. It's not because, anything else.
Yeah.
So that is, but like at the same time, I'm still goal driven. I still want to get the most out of myself. So like I'm going out there and, I just finished a 28-hour week because I want to be the best me that I can possibly be. I'm not happy going to a bike race and just like doing 90%. I still do that for me. I still have that drive from within.
Mm.
So
How has success changed for you in the way that you view performance and your overall, just what it means to be a professional bike racer since the days that you first started this back in, road racing to where you are now?
yeah, that's what I mean. Like back then, you would go to a bike race and hopefully you win. If you won, Velo News would do an interview with you, and then it
Mm-hmm.
would get printed in a magazine 3 months later when nobody cared about that event anymore. But that's how it worked back then.
Mm-hmm.
And now these days, there's a lot more that goes into it with being a bike racer. So life is a lot more busy dealing with sponsors and managing those relationships, which I actually really enjoy. That side of it. I'm super close with most of my sponsors now. I mean, I've been texting back and forth this morning with 4 separate companies. Just nothing really that has to do with anything to do with, work. It's just,
They become your friends now.
friendships. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that side of it, and it's been really beneficial because, I'm not just a product or whatever it is, I am a person.
Mm.
So having those relationships has become really important. But, you do have to do all the other portions of it as well. And that is as valuable as anything else, so like I said, the results for bike races, that one I do because I still care. But like everything else allows me to do what I want to do, which
Yeah.
is to go to bike races. So, the two pieces kind of go hand in hand. And, I used to fight it, for a long time. I fought it because I just wanted to go to bike races. I didn't want to be a personality. I don't care if people think I'm famous, or I don't care about any of that, the fame and all of that. But it's part of it now. So, I still try not to care. I still don't care about that side, but, at the same time, like I've, I've, I have some great relationships with some people that I've met over social media and going to bike races and doing my part of the job. Like you mentioned, Dave, who's our connection. Like I met Dave, when I was in Reading a couple of years ago, and I won Lemurian Classic.
Mm-hmm.
And he followed me on socials, and we just became buddies on there. Helped him out with some questions that he had on equipment and all of that. And he happened to be coming out here, out my way here in Reno. I think almost 2 years ago. So I was like, sure, yeah, let's go for a ride, and we just became buddies that way. Um, So I've met some great people just doing my job, you know? So like it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is neat. As you're explaining this situation that you've been able to build these relationships with brands for, the past 13 or so years or more, and you have the confidence like that they're your friends, and whether you come in fourth, 40th, or 400th, they're not going to necessarily drop you or anything like
Right.
that. I think that I don't know, that seems unique to the space that you're in, at least from the triathlon world that I'm in right now, because maybe it's growing so fast and there is a lot more money coming to the sport. There's like this unspoken fear, I think, of a lot of people that they're going to get dropped by a sponsor if they don't perform, or they have to always be searching for another sponsor. And I don't know, like, do you think that that's unique to your side of the sport? And do you think that that mentality could be or should be carried across the other endurance sports?
Yeah, so like I think there's two separate conversations, right? Because like the my mentality, I think that's my mentality. Maybe some of my peers haven't quite figured it out, but like again, I've been doing this professionally for 22 years. Like, dude, I predate social media. I was a
Mm-hmm.
pro before social media was a thing. Like there wasn't Instagram, there wasn't Facebook. Like I was a pro before MySpace was a thing, if you remember MySpace.
I do. That's my
You
first
know,
ever
so
thing.
like uh so these are all things that I've had to learn to adapt to and figure out and how does this work? And like I said, I fought it for a long time. Like, props to Phil because he got it on it super early. He was on Twitter in 2010 when we were teammates. And I remember we would sit down and like I would give him shit all the time. Like, dude, why are you talking to a bunch of strangers on your phone? Like, like what are you doing? And he didn't know what he was doing, but next he was right, and that's a conversation that we've had many times, and even more recently, he's like, he's giving me shit about it, like pretty recent. It's like, dude, if you had listened back then,
You could have been huge.
could have been, yeah, so
Yeah.
like, but but at the same time, like my value isn't what place I finish in a race the same way. It's not the number of followers I have on social media, right? And my value, what I bring to companies that I work with, is much larger. So, like, I understand the marketing value. I understand what it means to get ROI. Like some of my peers don't know what that stands for, right? And they think that just go to a bike race and hopefully get on a podium and
Mm-hmm.
money. But like, that there's a huge disconnect. But so like I understand that you have to do all these other things. So like for example, um I ride for Orbea, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like I connected them with 3 separate shops in the past 2 months to put bikes in there.
Yeah.
That is way more bikes uh than I could possibly help them promote
Mm-hmm.
and sell,
Like on Instagram or something.
on through Instagram. But like I do that as well. So like, I still with bikes and, ask any of my sponsors, they'll tell you. I do well as far as ROIs. I have a lot of great supporters that, believe in what I'm selling and what, the companies that I partner with. And because I partner with them, it kind of validates these companies. So it all kind of goes together. But the thing is, like, these companies see how much work I'm putting in to help them, whatever that might be. So then there's not like one thing that I bring them, right? So like they're not just like putting all their focus on me because I can get a win at a certain event, right? My season isn't break or make it if I win or lose one event. Because like if I win or don't win, I'm still helping with this, I'm still helping with content, I'm still promoting the stuff, I'm still participating in their own marketing agendas. I'm at events So like I'm doing 18 events this year. When I go to an event, I make sure to spend at least 30 minutes a day with each individual of my sponsors if they're at the expo. So like if a sponsor of mine has a booth at the expo, I'll go and sit around and spend 30, 45 minutes and just hang out. Like maybe I don't even have anything to do. I'm just hanging out, spending time with them, catching up. Like, hey, how's life? Like, how's your kid? Or, oh yeah, last time we were together, you were talking about this. How did that turn out? And it has nothing to do with bike racing, but like we developed this friendship. But like I'm present. I'm there if somebody comes up and it's like, hey, I'm looking for this helmet, and I can stand up and be like, hey, I'm a pro, I'm doing this event and whatever, and this is the helmet that I'm choosing to do in this event, and sort of like that goes a long ways to hear from the pro that's sponsored by the company.
Yeah.
Um, so that goes a long ways, but like they see that I'm doing that. On the other hand, I'm sitting there and like there might be 3 or 4 of the other ambassadors from that company that walk up and they're like, oh yeah, so I forgot my disc. Do you have one that I can have right now? They get whatever they need and walk away. Like there's no, it's so much of like,
It's very transactional. There's got to be more
yeah,
more relational for sure.
and so, but yeah, so I don't feel a pressure to perform in any single way. You know, like Bike Tires Direct, like so they sell their company that I work with. They sell tires, but they're the biggest retailer for everything in the U.S. And they just happen to have a lot of brands that I work with, and they sell their products. So, like for example, Cool Eyewear, which are my sponsor, they have a new eyewear that just launched recently, and it's about to hit stores this week. So like they needed a picture and they didn't want to use the stock photos from Italy for the thing, and they're like, oh, our rider uses those eyewear and we need some pictures that are not some stock photo and whatever green screen. Went out, took some pictures, sent it. So like Thursday, the email is going to go out and it's going to have my face with the eyewear. So then I'm like checking multiple boxes,
Yeah.
It's like you see Cask helmets, you see Cool Eyewear on the distributor, on the dealer. So like there's a million things that are going on. So like, yeah, just checking boxes. So there's not one thing that they came to me for that. It's not like, we need you to win the Tour de France, or, or there's no value. Maybe if I made that much more money, it becomes a thing. But like at the same time, you look at a guy like Pogacar. He is by far the best cyclist in the world. At the same time, like the reason he's paid twice as much as anybody else is his marketing value, but not so much because of how good a bike racer he is, but because of like all the other things that he's doing, like the fact that he's like winning a tour stages and like he slows down just a second to give some little kid a water bottle, like that goes viral, a lot more eyes are gonna see that and be like, oh man, he's so cool. Now there's like that connection with this guy rather than like back in the Chris Froome day where everybody's like, this guy's a robot, and
Yeah.
nobody cared about the guy. It's just like, okay, he's winning, but like there's no connection there. And now all of a sudden you see Pogacar doing all these things and like he looks like he's having an amazing time on a bike rather than just like staring at his stand.
Yeah.
And that goes way farther than he would just by getting results alone.
Yeah.
So like maybe he would still be getting paid like 3-4 million a year. But because he does everything else, he doubles or triples that. With that said, even that number is kind of low compared to, like, for example, ball sports. So, we still have a lot of room to go up.
Totally different industry.
Yeah. So, but, those things are going to help us eventually, not, I don't mean like myself, but like help our sport get to that level.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. What do you see as like the future for you beyond bike racing? Like when you do decide to retire, because I'm thinking, oh, maybe you start some kind of media training courses just for how to be relational with brands, because there seems like there's a real lack in individuals, athletes, privateers knowing how to add value beyond the follower count, beyond the social media. Here's my numbers. We can maybe get you this many sales.
Yeah, the thing is like, okay, you can have a large following and then not know what to do with that, which is what happens a lot most of the time. Like, okay, cool, you have like 50,000 followers, but like, you look at ROI and
Engagement's just
the engagement is great, but like, what is that around, right? It's like I said, like I could start a fight with Phil and get massive engagement, but like, what does that do for us? Like it doesn't sell anything if I'm just like being a clown. Like I'm not selling, tickets to a festival, so like there's no point being a clown there. But like it's what you do with a following that makes the difference. Um and I I've had that conversation with my wife a bunch of times, and I've even put some pitch decks together and things like that. The problem is like, dude, 2-3 times a week I get somebody that sends me a message like, "Hey, so like, how can I get this sponsorship, or can you connect me with that company and whatever?" And it's like, hey, no, I cannot just connect you with that company. Like, I don't know who you are, I can't vouch for you. But like, I always try to take my time to like write them a message and offer some help of like how they can go about doing that themselves, and then go from there. But like most of the time it's like, hey man, like this is, some ideas of how you can make yourself valuable. And like if I get a reply, it's usually like thanks. And so like
yeah. They were looking
people
for a
want the
quick win.
easy way to do it. It's like, hey man, like I'm looking for sponsorship, and it's like, this is how you can go about doing that. And it's like, oh yeah, all right, whatever. Like they were just hoping that I'm just gonna pick up the phone and be like, hey, sponsor this guy that just like I have no idea who they are. Or maybe I know who they are, but I also know that they don't, aren't going to be of any value.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I've also made better maybe 15 connections this past couple months in the fall. That I see as valuable for both, both the company and the whoever the person was. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So let me ask you this then, get your advice. So I've been doing this podcast now for going on crazy, but 2 years here in just a few months. I've got to meet tons of people across the spectrum from endurance sports. So we've had on cyclists, lots of triathletes, lots of businesses and brands that kind of exist in that space. And for the longest time, I was like, no, for 3 years, I'm not going to try to monetize anything. But recently, I keep having more and more companies ask, like, if they can sponsor and, like, what does that look like? And to be honest, I haven't truly figured that out yet. So, like, what do you think if you were in my shoes with this type of a podcast in this type of an industry? What kind of value do you think that I could best bring to different companies that would also be of value to the audience?
I mean, first it has to be companies that you believe in, right? Because like that's a big thing to just like for you to just all of a sudden be like, hey, hold on 1 second, pull out your phone and be like, so and just like
Yeah, yeah,
spend 30 seconds reading something that like that does nothing. So I mean, first things first, I would try to figure out some of these companies that you think are will have a mutual benefit, right? So like the way I go about it is like I look at companies that I already use the products. So like things that I would buy if I wasn't sponsored. reach out to them. But, the way I started going about it is like try to figure out what value can I bring that company. Some companies want somebody that's fast on a bike. Some companies will want somebody that has a big social media following. Some people want content. So like trying to figure out how do you fit that piece of the equation, um, and then you go about doing that for them, and then if you save them time on the day, um, things that they had to do anyways, and you accomplish that for them, they'll be stoked on whatever you're doing. So that kind of answers that previous question, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like in your case, for example, I'm sure you enjoy talking to people and companies and doing the podcasts, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, maybe you just love doing it and it's great for you, but at the same time, like, you could be making some money off of it and helping some of these companies and some of these people, some of the people that you talk to, and yourself. Um, so I don't see a problem with it. Um, Trying to monetize it. I would, go after companies that you believe in and try to figure out what value you can bring to them and start to
Mm-hmm.
form these relationships that way. And at some point it becomes like a mutual benefit because, they'll help you keep doing the podcast, keep, riding your bike and, making a living off of this. Uh, and at the same time, you're helping them do whatever, it is that they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, but each individual company, you're going to get something
A little something
different than
different.
others,
Yeah.
and you're going to, provide a different service. But yeah, stick with whatever you believe in. Don't try and go for, read ads and talk about uh, sex pills and
So funny. I know
mattresses
somebody
and
who did
whatever,
that recently. Yeah.
whatever mattresses and whatever else that
Yeah.
people are putting ads on the podcast, because then it's like people are gonna watch your podcast and be like, oh, here's the ad, and just skip, skip,
Yeah.
skip,
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 skip, skip. Run through it. Yeah. Well,
and
yeah.
then and then you might get paid to do 6 of those ads, but then that company is gonna be like, oh, Seth sold us like 0.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Good feedback. Well, I appreciate it. So let me ask you this question. What is in Stefan's future or Stefano's future? Sorry. Like mispronounce your name on the podcast. That's like
Yeah,
a
no, it's
huge
so good.
no.
Uh,
What is in your future?
I mean, I'm racing bikes full time. I'm still enjoying it. I still enjoy pushing myself. I'm feeling good. You know, um, um, I guess could say I'm more mature in age, but at the same time, I don't feel, any older than I did at 25.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
but I have a much more clear vision of like what I need to do for myself and how to, put those pieces together. Um, so I mean, dude, I've been racing bikes since I was like 8 years old. I'm gonna be 41 this month. Like, I don't see a future where like there isn't bikes,
Involved in some
and
way.
involved in one way or another. Uh, and it's something that I've learned growing up, right? So like when I was 8 years old, if you had asked me like, "What are you gonna do for a living?" And it's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a pro bike racer." Okay. All right. So I hit that target when I was 18, and it's like, all right, cool. Then I get on some road teams, and I'm by far the youngest guy on most of the road teams at the time. Um, I had some teammates that were like 29, 30, and they were married and they owned houses and things like that. And, a couple were talking about having kids, and it's like, I couldn't even picture that. Like it was
Mm.
so foreign to me. Like, wow, own a house, like have kids. I couldn't even imagine until I got there. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay. But at the time, like when I was 18, they seemed really old, and I thought that you would race bikes until you're 30, and then one day at the end of your season when you're 29, you just didn't renew your pro license,
Mm-hmm.
and you got a job doing something else. Or maybe you had enough money that, I don't know. I,
That's
I
just the
just,
way it went.
yeah, you just stopped racing and did something else. And I don't know what, you know, but then I got there and I figured out that I still really liked riding my bike. And I actually, like in 2010, I tried quitting.
Oh, really?
I had a horrible season. Just nothing clicked. I got injured in the beginning of the year, so then I missed like 2 months. So I was like 2 months behind, and just I never caught on, right? So I was always just like going to races and just getting my head kicked in, and it's like I've won stages here, I've placed here, placed there, and it's like now I'm struggling to finish. Um, and then actually at Tour of Utah, I was with Phil. It's in Phil's book too. I dropped out of the stage and I went back to the house to get my stuff. And I told Phil, I was like, dude, like it was awesome racing with you. We'd become good friends. Let's stay in touch. But like, I'm never pinning a number again. And I drove home. And that drive home was really weird because on one hand, I was like super relieved that I didn't have to like figure out how to be a good bike racer again. And at the same time, super sad that it's like, I'm
End of
not a
an
bike
era.
racer anymore.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? At the time, this is right before I met my wife. So I got home, I didn't have anything to do. I was just playing with cars. Like cars is like a hobby of mine, or was a much bigger hobby of mine back then. And so I was playing with the car, and then it's like now I'm bored. 2 days later, it's like I got nothing else to do. All right, I guess I'll go for a bike ride because that's what I know to do. So
Mm-hmm.
go for a bike ride, and then next thing you know, it's like 5 hours later. I come home, had a good day. Next day, just pack my pockets with food, go for another bike ride. But there was no thought of like I'm gonna be a bike racer or I'm training. It was just like,
You're free.
yeah, I'm just doing it just because this is what I know. Like I'm stressed out or I'm not in a decent place or I'm bored or whatever it might be, go ride my bike. And I just kept doing it. And then I met my wife, and then we ended up moving to SoCal a couple months later. I went to a bike race, and then I ended up on the podium there. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, okay, like the fun is back.
Mm-hmm.
But, I figure out that I didn't have that pressure anymore of like, I need to be this or I need to be that. And it's like I'm doing bike racing because I like it. And it was a lesson that I have been able to take on. And it's like, dude, if I quit bike racing, it doesn't change the world at all. Like,
Mm.
bike racing is going to happen next weekend, anyways, if I'm there or not. Um, so, like, I don't need to put all this pressure on myself that, like, I need to be a certain thing or another. Go out and I do it because I love to do it. Bike racing is bike racing. It's always going to be there, whether I'm here or not. And, um, but yeah, go for it. And I just really learned that I actually like being a cyclist more so than what result or my follow count or whatever
Mm-hmm.
else, like um so I think that is a little bit of that. So I don't see myself going anywhere
Yeah.
in a direction. Plus, like I said, man, I've been involved in this for 30 whatever years. It's like I don't really know anything else, but like I have it sort of figured out. I think that if I needed to, I can make some calls and figure something out with one of a handful of the companies that I already have relationships with. I think I have some favors that I can make
Mm-hmm.
or ask for that I've earned over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it'd be too hard to figure out some other things to do. And I already do some of that as well. I mean, what I do isn't just solely that, like with flow formulas, I already do a little bit outside of that, and I do a little bit of the help manager. I help manage some of the high level ambassadors for flow formulas, which is my nutrition sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
And this came about after I was a ambassador rider for them. But they saw that I had my stuff together. I was always uh the first one to be like, hey, so what's the plan for that race? Are you guys going to be there 2 months from now? Like, how are you guys doing the expo? What are the activations looking like? Is there anything I can help with next month? And they're like, you're the only one that calls us with this stuff. Like, can you help us, kind of help with the other riders that we have already? So these are all things that could be in the future. I enjoy those relationships. So like I can see something like that, but I still expect to be going to bike races, and I have kids now. I don't push my kids to be bike racers, or I don't push them to ride or anything like that. But like the lifestyle that I had growing up, the opportunities that I had, some of the things that I got to do because I was a bike racer, it's pretty amazing lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
even if the money isn't all that, you know, I could probably be making more money by having a regular 9 to 5 somewhere else, but like the life experiences
Yeah.
don't come close.
And the control of your time. I think that's the biggest thing for me of
Right.
not having like the regular 9 to 5 is I like to know I have control of my time if I need to take a break or go see someone or go for an extra bike ride or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of value in that I think that goes unspoken. Yeah. So let me ask you this last question. For somebody who is young and has gotten into bike racing, let's just say road racing, because that's where you came from, and they are on that same path of just being burnt out, really starting to question it, like, I think I'm done with this, throwing themselves in the line in the rain down a crazy mountain descent, like they just like, you know what, I think I'm done with this lifestyle. And it's likely because like their identity is so wrapped up in, oh, it's only a performance thing or whatever. Or what advice would you give to them to do it, to find bike racing or bike riding as a passion for doing it for themselves and for fun and for the enjoyment of it rather than just like oh, I have to do this?
I mean, ask yourself, like, why are you doing it? If the reason is to make money, like, quit, dude, run away. Like, go find something else to do because like the money is not that great. Um, and you don't chase the money. You chase your goals, and the money comes with it.
Mm,
So if you're looking at it as like, I need to make a living off of this, like you're already going the wrong direction because none of it is guaranteed. Like people that talk about prize money like it's income, like it's not. Prize money is a bonus. There's
mm,
no guarantee that you're going to perform. You could have a flat tire at the wrong time and
yeah, game over.
game over. Um, so like do what makes you happy. The other stuff comes with it, man. Like, but at the same time, like, you have to have some sort of, you have to believe in whatever that is because, like, for example, when I moved back to racing off road, my friends are like, they're all road racers. So they're looking at it as like racing 100-mile mountain bike races, racing gravel races. In 2017, people weren't really racing gravel races. Gravel
Mm-hmm.
races were sort of like fondos. Um, so they're looking at me like, you're gonna go do that? Like, how is that gonna work? Like, how do you make a living? It's like, I don't know, man, but I believe that I'm just gonna do whatever I'm having fun with doing, and I'll figure out the rest of the shit. It'll come together somehow, some way or another. But like, you have to believe in that, like, plan B is plan A, so like go
Stick it
full
through.
in and just keep doing your thing. Uh, don't pay attention to whatever else is doing because like if you're just doing what you see everybody else is doing, you're not ever gonna find a way to stick out. Um, because everybody else is already doing it. So like, why is somebody gonna invest in you to do what they already have 15 of.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, you just have to kind of look inside and figure out what makes you happy or what is going to make you happy. And maybe bike racing isn't it. And it's riding your bike that makes you happy, then figure out how to monetize that. There's other things that you can do. One of the great things about social media is that you can actually figure that out, or whether it's doing a podcast, doing YouTube videos, or working with brands directly and promoting, ambassadorships, but like figuring out how to create a support network. I try not to use like followers and fans and whatever, like these are supporters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like these people, they help me, they support what I'm doing, they follow along my journey and things like that, and they'll support sponsors that I'm associated with because they like who I am and what I'm doing. And it's like, oh, my friend is, this company helps my friend, you know. So how do you tell that story of whatever it is that you want to do? No, so that's kind of the most important thing. But like I said, man, like there's so much of this, a bit of entitlement and like self-importance going on right now, where everybody thinks that whatever their performance on this one day is gonna change the world and it's gonna change their lives. I've won a lot of races, but I've never won a race that like changed my life like that. Maybe if you win the tour, it might change you like that. Maybe in the gravel world, Unbound, triathlon, maybe Hawaii will do that. But like at the same time, you don't just come out and win one of those.
Yeah, it's a
You know,
lot of work.
it's a long ways before you ever get the opportunity to even try to do that. So like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you do win one of those, it doesn't change your life all that drastically. Some, but like we're talking at like the super extreme end of things. But like for the most part, you win a bike race and it's awesome. There's no feeling like it that last 30 seconds before you cross the line where you're like, I'm going to win this thing. All this work that I put in to get here and all these things that I had to do and relationships and all this build up to get here. Like, you get that moment of euphoria before you cross the finish line and there's nothing like it. But like, again, that all has to come from inside. There's
Mm.
no there's no one event that's just going to change your life. So like take a step back and look around and be like, uh, things are going to move forward as they were anyways.
Yeah.
It's the pressure shouldn't all be on yourself. Go have some fun. Go ride your bike. Do it because you love it, not because.
Yeah, find your why.
Yeah, and it cannot be because somebody else tried to tell you. Like when I was much younger, I figure out. So I race road bikes for the team that is now EF Cannondale or EF Education, whatever they're called.
Mm-hmm.
I raced for them in 2004, 2005. So I raced in Europe. I did World Tour level races. We were much smaller than they are now. But I did World Tour races back then. And I finished that year in 2005, and I had a miserable time living in Europe. It was horrible for me. The
Mm.
racing wasn't too bad, but like the lifestyle there sucked because like, again, this is before social media. This is before smartphones. So you go out there, you're there for 2 months, and like you don't talk to your family, you don't talk to your friends, you don't anything. You're just like in a room waiting till it's time to go to a bike race, and then you go to the bike race, and then that part of it is fun because it's racing bikes. But like the 2 weeks in between,
Pretty
you're
rough.
just like in a hotel or in a house somewhere in France, you know. And at the same time, my dad was dying, and there's all of that, and it's like a
Mm.
lot of exterior things going on in my life. But like, I was like, I hate this. I hate being in Europe. Being secluded, being outside. I was in Germany when I got the call that's like, oh, you should come to Brazil. Could be your last chance to talk to your dad. And it's like, I
Mm.
can't. I got to race in Europe now.
Mm.
And so I at the time there was money to race domestically in the U.S. I could make a good living, and I was like, I just want to do that. I just want to go do Tour California, do Tour Georgia, do all these like huge races and make a good living, have a good time, be at home, like have a life outside of just like a hotel room or a house somewhere in the countryside in France. Um, but like I remember having a call once with I think it was an interview or something like that. It was like 2006, 2007, and they were asking me some question like, so you raced in Europe, but now you're just trying to race, these races in the US. It's like, why are you still doing it? It's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, they tried to explain me that my goal should be to like go to Europe, get on a world tour team, which at the time was like a Division One. It wasn't even a world tour back then. And then eventually you got to make it to like racing the Tour de France and winning the Tour de France.
Yeah,
So,
that's the only path.
like that is the only path. It's like go to Europe, race the tour, win the tour. And if that is not a possibility, like you're wasting time. Like go do something else with your life. And it's like, all right, I don't respect you. I'm looking at this, I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at my phone. It's like, all right, I don't respect this person. Like, why am I talking to this person?
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously don't get what, what riding bikes is
Yeah, if
if
that's the
that's the
only
only thing
path.
that they see is like, if you're either winning the tour or there's nothing else. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like me telling somebody, it's like, either be a billionaire
Yeah, or don't.
or like,
Yeah, just don't try making money. Just be homeless.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I think I figured out pretty early that I just got to figure out my own thing and go after that. So that's kind of the big lesson, I guess, today for your listeners.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you want to be and like, don't look at all what other people is doing. Don't judge your performances based on their performances because like I can go to a gravel race now and if I'm only looking at my placing on that day, and this goes back to what we were talking about with, results based income. If I'm only looking at my placing right now and it's like I'm eighth, it's like I want to win, but like, dude, seven people are better than me. What can I do about that? On
Yeah.
that day, seven people are better than me. I
Yeah.
can't. What am I supposed to do? Crash them? No,
Mm.
like go home, analyze what you did, figure out how you can improve what you could do better, what you did well. Try again and keep doing it. Hopefully next time you can go a little bit better, go a little bit better than that. But like what the competition is doing, I don't have any say on that. If somebody's better than me, like good for them,
Mm-hmm.
So like I judge my performances based on as close to being 100% to my best on that day.
Yeah.
So like, did
Give
I
what
do
you
all
got.
my training leading up to that event? Was I able to stay healthy? Uh, diet, family life, family stress, life stress. How did I juggle all those pieces? My sponsorships, the money, those relationships, like how I managed all of that, how I put that together, equipment choices for the event, and then how the day went. How did I feel on that day? How did I perform? Like my goal is to get to 100% of like the best I could possibly put together. If somebody's better than me, hey man, good for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Mm. Well, lots of good life lessons there. I think the biggest thing that I'd probably take away is find the why. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? And then I really liked also what you said that, if you want to make money at this, like go after your goals and then the money will come. And I found that is true in my experience. Sometimes it takes quite a long time. You have to grind and you have to work for it. But if you truly want something and you're going after it, then being unique and not following the crowd, like that's what makes you stick out and then gives you that opportunity. So yeah, thanks so much for taking the time to share from your story. And it sounds like you've obviously done a ton, and we'll have to have you on again another time to hear a little bit more. But yeah, thank you so much.
Steph, thanks, man. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and just discussing some different things.
Yeah.
It was a good time. It was a little bit different than the typical podcast, which I actually really enjoyed. But
yeah,
definitely looking forward to it. If you wanna, if there's anything that we can follow up at some point down the road and whatever, happy to. Hopefully see you over in Reading in May for Valerian.
Yeah.
Go for a ride together.
Yes, for sure. That would be great. I really, really want to make that happen. I may be going to a graduate. When is it? May what again?
I think it's 10. Around May 10, maybe.
Okay.
I have to double check
I'll probably still be here. My wife's going out of town for a graduation, but I'll connect with you for sure.
Figure out. We're not that far away, so let's link up some point.
Yeah.
Get you on a mountain bike sometime.
Yeah, I need to get like a cross country bike. I have like an enduro downhill bike, and I've done some stuff out in North Carolina that was really fun, like some pure mountain bike races, and I loved it. I love the downhill stuff, but not as skilled in terms of like the handling. So I definitely need to get back on one to make sure that I get better at all these turns and whatnot. But
maybe at some point we'll get Dave and go to some fun rides over here in near Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, man, that'd be awesome.
Bring the big bike and have some fun.
Yeah, for sure. All right, thanks so much, man.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much to Stefano for taking the time to come on the podcast and get to share a bit about his life, especially as an extensive professional cyclist across the road and also the mountain. I think what really sticks with me is just the importance of being able to find the why behind what you are doing, because if you don't have that, then it's really hard to push through and have grit and to continue to figure out what as an individual we are capable of. So Stefano, thank you so much for that advice. If you made it to this point in the podcast, though, just want to say thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here. If you are on YouTube, if you could like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. And if you are on any of the other platforms that allow you to listen to podcasts, if you could review, leave a comment, or do anything that you can do on those platforms, that will continue to help us to grow, and I would really appreciate it. Also, if you want to sign up for the newsletter, you can do so at the stupidquestions.show website, or check out the show notes below, and you can also check out Stefano's stuff in the show notes as well. All right, thank you so much, and we will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.